The hum of the energy field around Zintha's cell was constant, almost musical, if one were inclined to find beauty in imprisonment. Zintha wasn't. For 3 years, though time felt slippery on Threnody Station, she had been trapped inside this spherical cage, her every movement watched by mechanical sentries, and her every thought consumed by the oppressive weight of isolation. Her cell wasn't unpleasant by human standards, she supposed. The walls shimmered with a fractal-like pattern of glowing veins, colors shifting as if alive. Her captors, the Verak, had a flair for aesthetics, but Zintha knew beauty could be as much a weapon as any blade. The cell was a statement. You are nothing, and yet you are ours. She sat cross-legged on the cold, slightly pulsating floor, her bioluminescent skin dimmed to a dull lavender. The once vivid patterns of her Quarai lineage, which had danced across her skin with the vivacity of her emotions, were now pale echoes of their former brilliance. Resignation had taken root in her soul like a weed, choking out any hope of escape. Her only companion was Click, a maintenance drone assigned to monitor her cell. With its clunky metal frame and a single swiveling red eye, it was more rust than machine, though its personality chip seemed oddly well-maintained. Click hovered nearby, its usual sardonic tone breaking the silence. "Ah, Zintha, another glorious day in paradise," it chirped, its synthetic voice crackling slightly. "What's on the agenda today? Sitting? Staring? The occasional dramatic sigh?" Zintha raised a brow. "Don't forget the existential dread. It's the highlight of my schedule." "Ah yes, how could I forget? You wear it so well." Click rotated to face her fully, its eye blinking in mockery of a wink. "I'm thinking of writing a memoir about our time together, trapped with a Quarai, my life in glorious monotony." "Sounds riveting," Zintha muttered, her lips curving into the faintest smile despite herself. She hated that the drone's dry humor could still pull her from the abyss, even for a moment. Her captors rarely visited, trusting the automated systems to keep her contained. The Verak were nothing if not arrogant, their reptilian faces always twisted into sneers of superiority. They had captured her not because of any crime, but because she was Quarai, a species known for their empathic and telepathic abilities. To the Verak, that made her dangerous. Or useful. Zintha had once been a diplomat, her empathic gifts bridging gaps between warring species. She had believed in peace, in understanding. The Verak had shattered that belief, taking her during a negotiation and condemning her to this cage for reasons they never fully explained. Click hovered closer, breaking her reverie. "You know, you could brighten this place up a bit. Maybe project some of those fancy glowing patterns you Quarai are known for. Give the old cell some ambience." Zintha shot at a withering look. "My bioluminescence isn't for decoration, Click." "Pity, you'd make an excellent nightlight." Before she could respond, the station's usual hum shifted, a subtle tremor vibrating through the floor. Zintha tensed. Click's red eye blinked rapidly, its version of a frown. "Well, that's not normal," it said, voice unusually subdued. The tremor grew, and the distant sound of alarms reached her ears. A sharp, grating klaxon that set her nerves on edge. The Verak didn't sound alarms lightly. Something or someone had breached the station. Click's tone turned conspiratorial. "I'd wager it's a rogue asteroid, or maybe a scavenger raid. Either way, if we're lucky, they'll blow us all to bits. Freedom through annihilation. Cheers to that." Zintha ignored the drone's gallows humor, standing to peer through the shimmering energy field. The corridor outside her cell was bathed in flashing red light, shadows dancing like restless ghosts. "What's happening, Click?" The drone tilted as if shrugging. "Beats me. The security feeds just went offline. Someone's having a busy day out there." Then, a new sound reached her. The muffled thud, thud, thud of boots on metal. Not the synchronized march of Verak guards, but something different. Human. Her heart leapt, though she quickly suppressed the spark of hope. It could be anything. A scavenger, a mercenary, or even another prisoner being dragged to their cell. The footsteps grew louder, and then he appeared. A figure in black and gray armor, a rifle slung across his back, and a helmet obscuring his face. He moved with the practiced efficiency of a predator, pausing at her cell to study her through the energy field. "Well," he said, his voice filtered through a comm system, "you're not what I was expecting." Zintha crossed her arms, arching a brow. "And you're shorter than I imagined for a rescuer." The man chuckled, the sound surprisingly warm despite the distortion of his helmet. "Name's Orion Grath. I'm here to get you out of this cage, sunshine." Click hovered between them, its tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, lovely. Another human. This day just keeps getting better." Orion ignored the drone, his hands moving swiftly to a control panel beside the cell. They weren't kidding when they said Verac prisons are over-engineered. Who builds a cage with 30 redundant fail-safes? "The same people who made a talking tin can, my roommate," Zintha said dryly. "Touché." Orion pulled a device from his belt, a small cube that began to emit a low, pulsating hum. "This'll take a minute. Try not to look too excited about your imminent freedom." "I'll try to contain my enthusiasm," Zintha replied, though she couldn't help the flicker of curiosity and hope stirring within her. As Orion worked, the alarms shifted in tone, signaling an escalation in the chaos outside. Click floated closer, its synthetic voice low. "You know, if this goes sideways, I'll happily report you two to the Verac. Purely for entertainment value, of course." Orion glanced at the drone, his helmet tilting. "What's with the floating toaster?" "I'm a highly advanced maintenance unit, thank you very much," Click said indignantly. "And you are a walking liability." The energy field flickered, then collapsed with a hiss. Orion straightened, extending a gloved hand to Zintha. "Come on, time to blow this joint." Zintha hesitated for a fraction of a second before taking his hand. His grip was firm, grounding. For the first time in years, the walls of her cage were no longer a barrier. As they stepped into the corridor, Click floated after them, muttering, "This is going to be a disaster. I can't wait to watch." And with that, the three of them disappeared into the chaos, the first threads of freedom unraveling the fabric of captivity. The corridors of Threnody Station were a patchwork of clashing aesthetics. The Verac, infamous for their love of overcomplication, had designed their prison to double as a fortress and an art gallery. Panels of smooth, luminescent metals curved like organic sculptures, while angular bulkheads jutted out in defiance of symmetry. Captain Orion Grath moved through this chaotic maze with practiced efficiency, though he couldn't resist muttering to himself as he went. "Who makes a prison look like a museum?" he said under his breath. His voice, muffled by his helmet, bounced off the walls. "Next thing, I'll stumble into an abstract sculpture of their lunch menu." The truth was, Orion was in his element. Stealth missions weren't his specialty. He preferred the straightforward chaos of a battlefield. But even he could appreciate the elegance of sneaking past armed guards. His experimental cloaking device helped, rendering him an occasional shimmer in the air when the light hit him just right. The downside was the heat it generated, which made him feel like he was wearing a portable sauna. As he turned a corner, he spotted a trio of Verac guards. Their reptilian faces were marked with intricate scales, and their eyes gleamed with a predatory alertness. They spoke in their guttural tongue, which Orion had no interest in deciphering. He crouched, activating the cloaking device. As the guards walked past, he held his breath, praying the device wouldn't fail. It had a nasty habit of overheating at the worst moments, like during that one mission on Paxis 4 when he'd ended up dangling upside down from a tree, trying to explain to a group of angry mercenaries why he was naked. Once the guards were out of sight, he exhaled and moved on. His target was close. The stolen intelligence had been clear. The Verac were holding a quasi-empath of significant importance. Orion didn't know why the brass wanted her out so badly. His orders were need to know, and apparently, he didn't need to know. All he cared about was getting her out alive and collecting his pay. But as he approached her cell, he couldn't help feeling curious. Quari were rare enough, their empathic abilities almost mythical in some circles. What kind of person had the Verac deemed dangerous enough to lock away in their prettiest dungeon? When he finally saw her, he understood. Even in the dim light of the cell, the alien woman exuded a quiet intensity. Her skin shimmered faintly, the bioluminescent patterns dull but still intricate. She sat with a rigid composure that spoke of a will unbroken, despite her circumstances. For a moment, Orion almost felt inadequate. He wasn't used to rescuing people who looked like they might judge his every decision. "Well," he said, breaking the silence, "you're not what I was expecting." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "And you're shorter than I imagined for a rescuer." The corner of Orion's mouth twitched under his helmet. Quarry sarcasm. "That's new." "Fair enough," he said, stepping closer to the cell. "Captain Orion Grath, at your service, here to bust you out." The woman raised an eyebrow, her bioluminescent patterns flickering faintly. "You do realize the Verak don't leave their prisoners unguarded, right?" Orion grinned, though she couldn't see it. "Oh, I noticed. Don't worry, I'm very good at what I do." From behind her, a small maintenance drone hovered into view. It was a clunky little thing, all rust and wires, with a single red eye that blinked lazily. "Another human?" the drone said, its synthetic voice tinged with disdain. "Great, just what we needed. I assume you're here to add to the mess." Orion stared at the drone. "What's with the talking toolbox?" "I'm a highly advanced maintenance unit," the drone replied, its tone dripping with sarcasm. "But you can call me Click. Everyone does." "I'm not calling you Click." The drone rotated to face him fully, its eye narrowing. "And I'm not calling you competent, yet here we are." Orion shook his head, pulling out his hacking device. "Is this what you've been stuck with for company?" he asked the Quarry woman as he knelt by the cell's control panel. "It grows on you," she said dryly. "Like mold," Click added helpfully. Orion's device hummed as it interfaced with the Verak security system. His fingers moved swiftly, inputting commands and bypassing firewalls. "So," he said casually, "what's your name?" "Zintha," she replied, her voice steady but guarded. "Nice to meet you, Zintha. Any hobbies? Interests? Things you like to do in your free time?" Her lips twitched. "Well, I've recently gotten into contemplating the futility of existence." "Ah, a classic. Goes well with prison decor," Orion said, glancing up at her. "You know, I've always thought these energy cages are a bit much. The Verak must spend a fortune on their electric bill." "They do enjoy their overkill," Zintha said. The energy field flickered, then deactivated with a hiss. Orion stood, extending a hand to her. "All right, sunshine, let's blow this joint." She hesitated, eyeing him for a moment before taking his hand. Her grip was firm, and for a brief second, Orion felt the oddest sensation, like a thread of warmth passing between them. He shook it off. As they stepped out into the corridor, alarms blared louder and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the distance. "Uh-oh," Click said, floating alongside them. "I think we're about to have company." Orion unslung his rifle, checking the charge. "Let them come. I've got a knack for making bad first impressions." Zintha glanced at him, her bioluminescent patterns brightening slightly. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both," Orion said with a wink, though she couldn't see it. As the three of them moved deeper into the station, Orion couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. He had a mission to complete, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like more than just another job. And he couldn't shake the feeling that this Quarry woman, this Zintha, was about to change everything. The Verak didn't design Threnody Station to be navigated easily. Every corridor twisted into another, a maze of narrow pathways that alternated between harsh utilitarianism and baffling opulence. Orion, Zintha, and Click moved cautiously through its bowels, the echo of distant footsteps and the sharp crackle of the station's alarms keeping them on edge. Orion tapped the side of his helmet, scanning ahead with his thermal sensors. "Still clear for now. I'd say we're making good time, but honestly, I have no idea where the exit is." "That's reassuring," Zintha said, her tone dry as ever. "Hey, don't knock it. Improvisation is the hallmark of a great escape plan." "You do have an escape plan, right?" she asked, one delicate brow arching. "Well, it's more like an escape idea." Orion glanced back at her, his tone turning playful. Step 1. Free you. Step 2. Get off this floating art exhibit. Step 3. Figure out Step 2. Brilliant, Click interjected. I feel so safe in your capable hands. Really, I do. Zintha couldn't help but smirk at their banter, though her mind was far from at ease. It had been years since she'd walked freely, and the sensation of movement, of control, felt almost alien. Yet the lingering hum of danger in the air kept her sharp, her quarai instincts scanning for emotional threads from the Verak. The trio ducked into a side passage, the walls here pulsating faintly with blue-green light. Zintha paused, brushing her fingers along the glowing surface. This is strange, she murmured. Orion glanced back. What is? These walls aren't just decorative, she said, her bioluminescent skin faintly mirroring the glow. They're alive. The Verak have bioengineered them to sense movement, maybe even emotions. Orion frowned. That's creepy and annoying. Guess we'll have to move fast. No, Zintha said, her voice steady. We'll have to move carefully. If they're emotion sensitive, panic will draw them in. Stay calm, or we'll trigger something we can't handle. Calm, right, Orion muttered. Calm is my middle name. I thought your middle name was overconfident, Click quipped. Close enough, Orion shot back. As they moved, the glowing veins in the walls seemed to ripple, reacting subtly to their presence. Orion kept his pace measured, but his grip on his rifle tightened. So, he said, trying to lighten the mood, what do you miss most about life outside the cage, Zintha? Fresh air? Sunshine? Space karaoke night? Zintha tilted her head, considering. You assume I enjoyed any of those things to begin with. No karaoke? That's just tragic. I'm not sure what's worse, she said with a faint smile. The idea of quarai singing, or the fact that you've experienced it. Oh, I've experienced it all right, Orion said, a note of mock horror in his voice. You haven't lived until you've heard an 8-limbed Zatrak belt out, Don't Stop Believin'. Their exchange was interrupted by the sharp sound of boots pounding on metal. Orion raised a fist, signaling for silence, and the three of them pressed against the wall. A group of Verak guards appeared at the far end of the corridor, their sleek weapons glowing ominously. Orion held his breath, waiting for them to pass, but Zintha's expression shifted. She leaned close, whispering, They're not just patrolling. They're searching. For us. Fantastic, Orion muttered. Click, you got any brilliant ideas? Run? The drone suggested. I was hoping for something a bit more tactical. I'm a maintenance unit, not a military strategist, Click said with a huff. Though I'm flattered you think so highly of me. Orion peeked around the corner, his mind racing. The Verak guards had stopped, their heads turning as if sniffing the air. Their species had an uncanny ability to detect subtle changes in the environment, and he suspected the living walls were feeding them information. Time for a distraction, he said, pulling a small spherical device from his belt. What is that? Zintha asked. A noise bomb, he replied. It'll mimic the sound of movement down the hall. Should give us a chance to slip past. Should? Optimism is key, he said, tossing the device. It landed with a soft clink before rolling into the shadows. Moments later, a cacophony of footfalls echoed through the corridor, drawing the guards' attention. Go, Orion whispered, motioning for them to follow. They moved quickly but quietly, slipping past the distracted Verak. Once they were far enough away, Orion deactivated the noise bomb remotely, leaving their pursuers confused but none the wiser. That was almost too easy, he said. Don't jinx it, Click warned. The next chamber they entered was massive, a circular room with a high domed ceiling. Strange machinery lined the walls, pulsating with energy. In the center was a glowing column that extended from floor to ceiling, its surface shifting with liquid-like patterns. What is this place? Zintha asked, her voice hushed. Orion scanned the room, his visor analyzing the machinery. Looks like some kind of power hub, maybe even the station's brain. Not just a brain, Zintha said, stepping closer to the column. Her bioluminescent patterns brightened as she approached, reacting to the energy. It's alive. What is it with the Verak and living tech? Orion muttered, keeping his rifle ready. This isn't just tech, Xintha said, her voice tinged with awe. It's a sentient network. I can feel it. It's trying to reach out. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Orion asked, inching closer. That depends, Xintha said, placing a hand on the column. The liquid patterns shifted under her touch, responding as if recognizing her. Click hovered nervously. Maybe don't poke the giant glowy thing? Too late, Xintha murmured, her eyes narrowing as she focused. It's communicating. It knows what we're trying to do. And, Orion prompted, it wants to help, she said, her voice soft but resolute. Orion blinked. Help? Why would it help us? Because, Xintha said, a faint smile playing on her lips, it doesn't like the Verak any more than we do. The column flared brighter, and a low hum filled the chamber. Orion glanced at Click, who rotated nervously. Well, Click said, I'm sure this won't backfire horribly. As the machinery around them began to whir and click, Orion couldn't shake the feeling that their escape had just gotten a lot more complicated, and a lot more interesting. The glowing column pulsed like a heartbeat, filling the room with soft waves of light. Xintha's hand remained on its surface, her eyes distant and unfocused. Orion hovered nearby, watching her with a mix of curiosity and unease. So, he said, breaking the silence, you're just chatting with it? Yes, Xintha replied without looking at him. It's not exactly language, more like impressions and intent. Neat. Ask it if it knows a quick way out, Orion said. I don't think it responds to sarcasm, Xintha shot back. Everything responds to sarcasm, Orion muttered, before glancing at Click. Except you, obviously. On the contrary, the drone quipped, its red eye glowing faintly, I've learned to respond with overwhelming disdain. Before Orion could reply, Xintha's bioluminescent patterns flickered, brighter now, as if reacting to the column. Her expression shifted into something sharper, more focused. It's showing me a path, she said finally, a way to bypass the Verak entirely. Well, that's handy, Orion said, shouldering his rifle. Do we have time for a coffee break on the way, or are we still on the run for your life schedule? We're still running, Xintha said, stepping back from the column. The station's sentient core is helping us, but it's not omnipotent. The Verak are relentless. Great. Relentless reptilian overlords. My favorite kind of enemy, Orion said, motioning for them to move. As they exited the chamber, the station seemed to react to their presence. Lights dimmed in certain corridors, guiding their path, while others pulsed brightly, obscuring their trail. It was as if the station was playing a subtle game of chess, moving pieces to block the Verak while clearing a path for the trio. Does anyone else find this deeply unsettling? Click asked, his synthetic voice laced with unease. What's unsettling? Orion said. That a sentient station likes us more than its owners? I think that makes us charming. Or expendable, Click muttered. They followed the glowing trail into a narrow corridor, its walls lined with transparent panels that revealed streams of glowing blue liquid flowing through organic conduits. Orion paused to study it. What is that stuff? He asked. Bioconductive plasma, Xintha said. It's the station's lifeblood. Think of it as a neural network in liquid form. So, we're walking through its arteries? Orion said, looking uneasy. Essentially, yes, Xintha replied. Cool. Let's hope it doesn't sneeze. The corridor opened into a sprawling atrium, its ceiling so high it was lost in shadow. Verak statues stood at intervals, their intricate carvings depicting the conquest of various alien species. Orion grimaced as he passed one of a defeated Quarai, her form exaggerated in anguish. They really lean into the whole we're scary aesthetic, don't they? He said. It's not just aesthetics, Xintha said softly, her gaze lingering on the statue. It's psychological warfare. They want you to feel small before you even meet them. Well, joke's on them, Orion said with a grin. I never feel small, metaphorically anyway. A sudden rumble shook the floor, cutting off their conversation. Orion's rifle was up in an instant, scanning for threats. "That's not good," Click said. "No kidding," Orion muttered. "What was that? Verac reinforcements?" Zintha frowned, her bioluminescence dimming slightly as she focused. "Number, it's deeper. The station itself. Something's destabilizing it." "Fantastic," Orion said. "We're in a living station, and it's having a nervous breakdown." As they moved to the far side of the atrium, a low growl echoed through the air. Orion froze, his instincts kicking in. "What now?" he whispered. Zintha's expression darkened. "Verac hunters." From the shadows emerged 3 massive creatures, their forms sleek and predatory. They moved with a liquid grace, their scales shimmering with a metallic sheen. Their glowing eyes locked onto the group, and one let out a guttural roar that reverberated through the atrium. "Okay," Orion said, his voice tight. "I've faced worse." "Name one time," Click said. "Not the moment, Click." The lead hunter lunged, and Orion fired a burst of plasma rounds. The shots hit the creature's armored hide, barely slowing it down. "These things have shields?" Orion shouted, dodging to the side. "Not shields," Zintha said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Adaptive biology. They're absorbing the energy." "Of course they are," Orion said through gritted teeth. "Can't we ever face something simple, like a grumpy space pirate?" As the hunters closed in, Zintha stepped forward, her hands glowing with bioluminescent energy. She extended her arms, and a wave of shimmering light pulsed outward, momentarily stunning the creatures. "Run," she said firmly. "Gladly," Orion replied, grabbing Click and sprinting toward the nearest exit. The hunters recovered quickly, their guttural growls growing louder as they pursued. The station seemed to sense the danger, panels in the walls opening to release bursts of plasma that slowed the creature's advance. "Thanks, station!" Orion shouted over his shoulder. "Don't thank it yet," Click said. "We're still not out of here." The group reached a narrow maintenance tunnel, its walls lined with flickering lights. Orion slid to a halt, motioning for Zintha and Click to enter first. "Go, go, go," he said, firing a few more rounds at the hunters to buy time. The tunnel was barely wide enough for Orion's shoulders, forcing him to crouch as he moved. The hunters clawed at the entrance but seemed too large to follow. "Well," Orion said, breathing hard, "that's one way to lose weight, getting chased by nightmare lizards." Click's red eye flickered in what might have been a mockery of a sigh. "Your humor is a coping mechanism, isn't it?" "Absolutely," Orion said. As the group emerged into another chamber, the alarms quieted, leaving an eerie silence. Zintha turned to Orion, her expression unreadable. "The station bought us time," she said, "but it's clear the Verac won't let us leave easily." Orion nodded. "They can try. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve." "Let's hope so," Zintha said. Click hovered closer. "For the record, I'm starting to miss the cage." Orion grinned. "Don't worry, buddy. The real fun's just beginning." The maintenance tunnel eventually opened into a chamber, unlike anything they had encountered so far. The room was vast, the walls covered in an intricate web of glowing organic circuitry. In the center, a crystalline structure floated, suspended in midair by threads of energy that pulsed rhythmically, like the beats of an invisible heart. "Okay," Orion said, stopping short. "This is either the coolest thing I've ever seen or the most dangerous. Possibly both." "It's the station's core," Zintha said, her voice hushed with awe. "The sentience resides here, I can feel it." "Great," Click muttered, his red eye scanning the room nervously. "Let's hope it's not in a mood to negotiate with plasma bolts." Zintha ignored him, stepping closer to the core. The energy threads flared brighter as she approached, their light reflecting off her bioluminescent patterns in an almost hypnotic dance. "Careful," Orion said, following her cautiously. "We still don't know if this thing sees us as allies or as a snack." "It doesn't eat," Zintha replied, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Well, that's a relief. Still doesn't answer the ally question, though." Zintha extended a hand, and as her fingers brushed the core, The room pulsed with a soft hum. Orion instinctively raised his rifle, but nothing threatening happened. Instead, the hum became a series of musical tones, rising and falling in a soothing rhythm. "It's communicating," Xintha said, her voice tinged with wonder. "Cool," Orion said. "Tell it we're big fans of its work and would love a guided tour to the nearest escape pod." Xintha closed her eyes, her features relaxing as she immersed herself in the connection. The tones grew more complex, weaving into patterns that seemed to bypass spoken language entirely, delivering meaning directly to her mind. "The Varak didn't create this station," she said after a moment, her voice distant. "They captured it, enslaved it. Its original purpose was exploration, not war." "Figures," Orion said. "They can't help but ruin nice things." "But it's not just the Varak," Xintha continued, her eyes opening and meeting his. "It's breaking down because of us. The station is torn between helping us escape and its programming to obey the Varak. It can't reconcile the two." "So what's the solution?" Orion asked. "Can we hack it, reprogram it?" "You can't reprogram something that's alive," she said, her tone firm. "But we can persuade it, convince it that helping us is its best option." "Convince a sentient machine," Click said flatly. "No problem. Do we bring flowers or just recite poetry?" Before Xintha could respond, the walls trembled, and a sharp metallic screech echoed through the chamber. Orion spun around, his rifle at the ready. "What now?" he muttered. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a group of Varak guards. Unlike the hunters, these were heavily armored, their weapons glowing with a menacing red hue. "Well," Orion said, "guess they weren't going to let us chat with their pet AI in peace." The guards didn't wait. They opened fire, streams of searing energy slicing through the room. Orion dove behind a console, returning fire as he shouted to Xintha. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster!" Xintha didn't flinch, her focus on the core unwavering. The energy threads around the crystal began to shift, their pulsations growing erratic. "I'm trying," she said, her voice calm but strained. "It's conflicted. It wants to help, but it's afraid of what the Varak will do to it." "Tell it the Varak won't have a station left to torture if we don't get out of here," Orion shouted, firing another burst at the advancing guards. Click buzzed around frantically, his small laser firing ineffectively at the armored enemies. "Why do they always make the drones useless in combat? I demand an upgrade." "Focus, Click!" Orion barked, ducking as another volley of plasma bolts scorched the console he was hiding behind. The room's lights began to flicker, and the hum from the core intensified. Xintha's patterns glowed brighter, her connection with the station deepening. "It's making a decision," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Well, tell it to hurry," Orion snapped, firing another round that ricocheted off a guard's armor. The core suddenly flared, a blinding light filling the chamber. The energy threads lashed out like whips, striking the Varak guards and sending them sprawling. The walls trembled again, this time with purpose, as the room itself seemed to come alive. Orion shielded his eyes, glancing at Xintha. "What just happened?" "It chose," she said, a small smile of relief on her face. The core's light dimmed slightly, and a deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. It wasn't speech in the traditional sense, but the meaning was clear. "I will help you. Follow the path I provide." "Finally," Click said. "Something around here has common sense." The Varak guards were incapacitated, their weapons sparking uselessly. Orion stepped out from his cover, giving one of the guards a nudge with his boot. "Remind me to send this station a thank you card," he said. "Save the gratitude," Xintha said, her tone serious. "The Varak will retaliate. We don't have much time." The core pulsed again, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden passage. "Your escape," the voice said. Orion looked at Xintha and Click. "You heard the nice sentient machine. Let's move before the lizard squad sends reinforcements." As they entered the passage, the station continued to guide them, the walls lighting up in a sequence that led them deeper into its labyrinthine structure. Orion couldn't shake the feeling that the station was more than just a sentient machine. It felt alive in a way he couldn't fully understand. "Do you think it'll survive this?" he asked Zintha as they ran. "I don't know," she said, glancing back at the faint glow of the core behind them. "But it made its choice, just like we have to." The passage began to slope upward, the hum of the station growing fainter as they moved away from the core. Orion cracked a grin despite himself. "Well," he said, "if we make it out of here alive, drinks are on me." "You assume I drink?" Zintha replied, her tone teasing. "Trust me," Orion said. "After this, you'll want to start." Click buzzed indignantly. "And what about me?" "You can have an oil bath," Orion said, his grin widening. As they reached the end of the passage, a large hatch slid open, revealing the cold expanse of space beyond, and a sleek Verak shuttle waiting in the docking bay. "Well, would you look at that?" Orion said, his tone light despite the weight of the moment. "Our ride's here." "Don't jinx it," Click warned, but even the drone's tone carried a hint of relief. They boarded the shuttle quickly, the engines already humming to life. As Orion took the pilot's seat and fired up the controls, Zintha glanced out the viewport at the station, its glowing vanes dimming in the distance. "Thank you," she murmured softly. Orion glanced at her. "Talking to the station again?" "No," she said, her gaze steady. "Saying goodbye." The shuttle shot out of the docking bay, leaving Threnody Station behind. But as the stars stretched into streaks of light, Orion couldn't help but wonder if their escape was only the beginning of something far more complicated. The Verak shuttle hummed softly as it glided through the void, its sleek design cutting through the starlight like a scalpel. Orion leaned back in the pilot's chair, his boots casually propped up on the console. "Okay, not to jinx it," he said, tilting his head towards Zintha, "but this might be the smoothest escape I've ever had." "Don't say that," Click interjected, hovering nervously near the comms panel. "That's practically begging the universe to send us a supernova or a stray black hole." Orion grinned. "Oh, come on, Click, where's your sense of adventure?" "I left it in the cage," the drone replied dryly. Zintha sat across from them, her posture relaxed, but her bioluminescent patterns faint. She had been quiet since their departure, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. Orion glanced at her, trying to gauge her mood. "You good over there?" he asked. She nodded slowly, her voice soft. "I'm just, processing. The station. Its choice. Everything it sacrificed." "Yeah, about that," Orion said, turning in his seat. "How exactly does a sentient space station sacrifice itself? I mean, it's still there, right?" "For now," Zintha said. "But the Verak will retaliate. They'll punish it for helping us." "Great," Click muttered. "Now we've got guilt-tripping space stations, as if my programming wasn't stressful enough." Orion chuckled, but the weight of Zintha's words lingered. He tapped a few buttons on the console, scanning for any sign of pursuit. So far, the Verak seemed more focused on the station than on chasing their stolen shuttle. "Any idea where we're headed?" Zintha asked, breaking the silence. Orion shrugged. "Away. That's step one. Step two is figuring out who might be willing to hide us. Or, not shoot us on sight." "That narrows it down," Click said. The shuttle's sensors chirped, drawing their attention. Orion frowned, leaning forward to examine the readings. "Uh-oh," he said, his tone losing its usual humor. "What is it?" Zintha asked. "We've got company," Orion replied, pointing at the screen. "Looks like a Verak patrol ship." "Just one?" Click asked hopefully. "For now," Orion said. "But one call from them, and we'll have the entire fleet on us." Zintha stood, her bioluminescent patterns brightening slightly as her focus sharpened. "Can we outrun them?" "Probably," Orion said, "but that's the boring option. I was thinking we could try something a little more fun." Click groaned. "Your definition of fun usually involves explosions and near-death experiences." "Exactly," Orion said, flashing a grin. He activated the shuttle's thrusters, sending them into a steep dive toward a nearby asteroid field. The patrol ship followed, its weapons lighting up as plasma bolts streaked past the shuttle. "See? Already more exciting," Orion said, dodging a particularly large asteroid. Xintha gripped the back of his chair, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Your plan is to lose them in the asteroid field?" "Plan might be a strong word," Orion admitted, narrowly avoiding another plasma bolt. Click let out a series of beeps that sounded suspiciously like swearing. "This is not how I imagined escaping the Verak." "Oh, come on," Orion said, steering them through a narrow gap between two spinning asteroids. "This is classic. You've never seen an old Terran holo about daring space chases?" "Your holos didn't include hyper-advanced Verak weaponry," Click snapped. The patrol ship closed the distance, its weapons tearing through smaller asteroids in its path. Orion's grin faded as he realized they were running out of options. "Okay," he said, his tone shifting. "Time for Plan B." "Which is?" Xintha asked. "Improvisation," Orion replied, hitting a series of buttons on the console. The shuttle's engines roared, and a trail of shimmering particles began to pour from its rear. The particles quickly expanded, forming a dense cloud that obscured their path. "What is that?" Xintha asked. "A little surprise from the Verak's own tech," Orion said. "Something about these particles messes with targeting systems. Hopefully." "Hopefully?" Click echoed. "You're gambling our lives on hopefully?" "Relax," Orion said. "It's working, isn't it?" The patrol ship slowed, its plasma bolts veering off course as it tried to navigate the particle cloud. Orion used the distraction to push the shuttle's engines to their limit, darting deeper into the asteroid field. After a tense few minutes, the patrol ship disappeared from their sensors. Orion leaned back with a satisfied grin. "And that's how you outsmart a Verak," he said. Xintha shook her head, though a faint smile played on her lips. "You're reckless." "Recklessly brilliant," Orion corrected. Click let out a long, dramatic sigh. "I don't know how I always end up with the mad ones." "Fate has a sense of humor," Orion said, patting the drone on its metallic head. As the asteroid field thinned, the shuttle's sensors picked up a nearby planet. It was small, with a faint atmosphere and a surface covered in crystalline formations that glowed faintly in the starlight. "Looks like a good place to lay low," Orion said, setting a course. Xintha studied the planet as it grew larger on the view screen. "Do you think it's inhabited?" "Only one way to find out," Orion said. As they descended toward the planet's surface, the shuttle systems began to flicker. Orion frowned, tapping the console. "That's weird," he muttered. "What now?" Click asked, his tone weary. "Some kind of interference," Orion said. "Probably from those crystals." The shuttle wobbled as they entered the atmosphere, its controls becoming sluggish. Orion gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls. "Hang on!" he shouted as the shuttle made a rough landing, skidding across the crystalline surface before coming to a halt. "Well," Click said after a moment, "we're alive. Barely." Orion stood, brushing himself off. "Let's see where we've landed." The shuttle's hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a landscape bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. The crystalline formations towered above them, their surfaces reflecting the starlight in a dazzling display. Xintha stepped out first, her bioluminescent patterns blending with the glow of the crystals. She knelt to examine one of the formations, her expression thoughtful. "These aren't just crystals," she said. "They're alive, and they're communicating." "Great," Orion said, stepping out behind her. "More sentient things. Can we find one that doesn't want to kill us?" Click hovered beside them, his red eye flickering. "Orion, I hate to ruin your optimism, but there's movement." From the shadows of the crystalline forest, shapes began to emerge. They were humanoid, their bodies composed of shimmering crystal, their eyes glowing with an inner light. "Okay," Orion said, raising his hand slowly. "Let's try the universal greeting. Don't shoot." One of the crystalline beings stepped forward, tilting its head as it regarded them. Then, in a voice like chiming bells, it spoke. "You are not Verak. Why have you come?" Orion exchanged a glance with Zintha, then grinned. Long story, he said, but it starts with, we're the good guys. The crystalline beings surrounded the trio, their shimmering forms casting prismatic light across the jagged landscape. Orion kept his hands raised, a crooked smile on his face. Hi there. Love what you've done with the place, he said. The lead figure tilted its head, the crystalline facets of its face reflecting the starlight. Its voice chimed again, gentle yet inquisitive. Your humor is unusual. Explain your purpose here. We're fugitives, Zintha said, stepping forward. Her bioluminescence flared slightly, her confidence returning. The Verak hunt us because we defied them. We mean you no harm. The crystalline being's light dimmed, as if deep in thought. The Verak are known to us. They covet what they cannot understand. Well, they didn't understand us escaping, that's for sure, Orion said, his grin widening. Nice to know we're consistent. Click floated beside him, letting out a low buzz. Could we not antagonize the sentient crystals just this once? Zintha stepped closer to the leader. We're not just running. We want to stop them. Their empire is built on destruction and slavery. If we can find a way to fight back. The crystalline figure raised a hand, its chiming voice cutting her off. You seek more than refuge. You seek alliance. Alliance would be great, Orion said. Any chance you've got an anti-Verak laser cannon hidden around here? The figure ignored him, focusing on Zintha. You are not like the others. Your spirit carries the weight of chains, yet you shine with hope. Why? Zintha hesitated, glancing at Orion and Click, before turning back to their unexpected host. Because of them, she said softly. They showed me what it means to fight for something greater than myself. Orion blinked. Wait, are we inspiring? Did I miss a memo? Click tilted slightly, his tone skeptical. Don't let it go to your head. You're barely tolerable on a good day. The crystalline being's light brightened, almost as if it were smiling. Your bonds are unusual but strong. Perhaps you are the spark this galaxy needs. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, a low hum vibrating through the air. Orion tensed, his hand drifting to his sidearm. What's that? He asked. The figure turned toward the horizon, its glow dimming. The Verak are coming. They will not let you escape. Fantastic, Orion muttered. Guess our streak of good luck was overdue for a crash. Zintha stepped forward, her voice steady. Will you help us? The figure's light flared brightly, and a chorus of chiming voices echoed through the crystalline forest. We will, but your path will not be easy. Great, Orion said, because it's been a cakewalk so far. As the Verak ships descended through the atmosphere, the crystalline beings moved with a coordinated precision that stunned Orion. Massive spires of crystal rose from the ground, their surfaces glowing with energy. The air crackled with power, the planet itself responding to the invaders. Orion stood on a ridge beside Zintha and Click, watching the scene unfold. I take back everything I said about needing a laser cannon. This is way cooler. The first Verak ship fired a barrage of plasma bolts, but the spires absorbed the energy, redirecting it into blinding beams of light that struck the ship's hull. It exploded in a dazzling display, sending fragments raining down. That'll make them think twice, Click said, his tone smug. Or it'll make them send more, Orion replied. Sure enough, more ships appeared, their sleek forms blotting out the stars. The Verak weren't retreating. They were escalating. Zintha turned to the crystalline leader, who stood nearby, its glow steady despite the chaos. What can we do? The Verak's strength lies in fear, the being replied. But fear is not invincible. Your courage inspires us. Together, we will drive them back. Great pep talk, Orion said. Any chance you've got a plan to go with it? The being raised a hand, and a wave of light spread across the ridge. Orion felt a strange warmth envelop him, his muscles relaxing even as his mind sharpened. What was that? He asked. A gift, the leader said. You are part of this world now. Its strength is yours. Orion flexed his fingers, a faint glow trailing their movements. Okay, that's new. Xintha's bioluminescence flared brighter, blending with the planet's light. She closed her eyes, her expression one of calm determination. Let's end this, she said. The battle that followed was unlike anything Orion had ever experienced. The crystalline beings fought alongside them, their bodies shifting and adapting to counter the Varac's relentless assault. Xintha moved with a grace and power that left even Orion speechless, her connection to the planet making her a force of nature. Click, for his part, had finally found a use for his small laser. "Take that, you oversized salamanders!" he shouted, zipping through the chaos and firing at anything that moved. Orion laughed despite himself, his newfound abilities allowing him to dodge plasma bolts and land precise shots that disabled Varic weapons. "You know," he said, ducking behind a crystalline spire, "this might actually work." Xintha smiled, her voice steady despite the chaos. "It will, because we're fighting together." The tide turned as the Varic began to retreat, their forces unable to overcome the combined strength of the planet and its unexpected allies. The last ship fled into the atmosphere, leaving behind a battlefield, bathed in the soft glow of victory. Later, as they stood amidst the shattered remains of the Varac's weapons, the crystalline leader approached them. "You have brought hope to this place," it said, "and perhaps to the galaxy." Xintha bowed her head. "We couldn't have done it without you." The being's light dimmed slightly, a sign of respect. "Your journey is not over, but you will not face it alone. The Varac will learn that their reach has limits." Orion clapped his hands together. "Well, I don't know about you two, but I'm ready for a long nap and maybe a drink that doesn't glow." Xintha smiled, her patterns shifting into soothing hues. "Thank you, Orion, for everything." He shrugged, his grin softening. "Hey, I couldn't let you rot in that cage. Besides, you're not so bad for an alien." Click hovered nearby, his tone exasperated. "Can we please leave before the Varac change their minds?" "Relax, Click," Orion said, patting the drone. "We've got time." As they boarded the shuttle, Xintha paused, looking back at the crystalline forest. "We'll be back," she said softly. The leader's voice echoed in their minds. "You will always be welcome." As the shuttle lifted off, Orion glanced at Xintha. "So, where to next?" "Somewhere we can make a difference," she said, her gaze steady. Orion smiled. "Good answer." As the stars stretched before them, the trio left the planet behind, their bond stronger and their purpose clear. They weren't just running anymore. They were fighting for a galaxy that still had a chance.